Hi everybody and welcome back to a new video on my booktube channel, Books with Cleo, and today I'm here with another wrap up. It's been a really long time actually since I've done a proper wrap up. I've been sort of switching it up between wrap ups and recent favourites videos, but today I'm doing a full wrap up of everything I've read in March. I read a lot in March. I think it's been my best reading month so far this year. Just gonna check how much I read. I have my Goodreads on my iPad. I read 15 books in March, and that's mainly because I reread an old favourite of mine that I read when I was really young, and I've reread it, and yeah, I reread the whole trilogy in like 2 days, so that really amped up my entire reading month. Before we get into the actual wrap up, I want to thank today's sponsor, which is Skillshare. So thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video and for working with me again. So if you've never heard of Skillshare, Skillshare is an online learning community where thousands, millions of people come together to learn new things. There are so many different classes on Skillshare. There are classes on photography, classes on freelancing, writing. There's even languages on there. There's like so many different things. Painting is on there as well. I've been using Skillshare for a while now, and I've checked out some classes in writing, painting, because I paint a lot, and now I've also started doing some classes in digital illustration. I found this one class by Vashti Harrison, and it's called Illustrating and Procreate, Drawing a Shareable Time-Lapse, and it's such a fun class. She shows you how to create really magical illustrations in Procreate, and like those beautiful digital glowy illustrations, and I love that style, so that has been absolutely amazing. So if this little ad has made you interested at all, please check out the link in my description. The first 1,000 people to sign up via that link get free Skillshare Premium, and after that it's only $10 a month, so it's still super affordable. So thanks again for Skillshare, for your faith in me, and thanks to you guys for always supporting me and my channel. And yeah, let's now get into the wrap up. Let's talk about books, baby. Let's talk about everything I've read. And let's start with Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. I think this is one of my new favourite books. It was so much fun to read. I remember one of these blurbs saying something like, "These pages wrap around you like a warm hug." And I could not agree more. That's literally how this book felt. It's a collection of essays by Dolly Alderton, and it's all about coming of age, being in your 20s, discovering dating, discovering yourself, friendships, female friendships, all the connections you have in your life. And it's just something that you read away really quickly, but that still has a lasting impact. Some of the paragraphs she wrote about going to therapy and sort of reflecting on herself and the things she does wrong in life, and also some of the paragraphs about her best friend's sister who got very ill are so impactful and make me like tear up and make me emotional. So this was definitely a really memorable read, and I'm really happy that I read this in March. I'm not going in any particular order, just so you guys know. Right, another book I read was One Carefree Day by Whitney Amazeen, and I have like mixed opinions on this book. On the one hand, I enjoyed it so much. It felt like a new favourite, and it was just so super enjoyable to me. Like, I felt so seen by this book and I felt so recognised. Still, I have some criticisms of the book. Small synopsis. So this book is about Willow, and Willow is dealing with very heavy anxiety and mostly OCD, and she has all these coping mechanisms that aren't necessarily super healthy, and her mental health is really starting to take a toll and to impact her life. And her mother gives her an ultimatum. She has to get on medication or she has to move out and find her own place to live. So that is very heavy, and she has a best friend, and there's also a new guy that comes to live close to her. She and the guy sort of start doing this therapy thing together because he used to like help his dad because his dad was like a therapist. I'm not sure if it's like the best message to give to teens that they can just like do therapy on their own, because like I don't think they can. I'm not sure if that's safe. At the same time, this book talked really openly about mental health and about going to therapy and about that being okay. And I think it also showed really beautifully how you can be so in your mental illness that you don't even want help, even though you recognise as well that like your life is not very livable anymore. Another thought I had was that therapy is not accessible for everybody, because not everybody lives in a country with healthcare, and not everybody can just go to therapy if they need it, you know. And even in my country, we have really long wait lists if you need any type of mental help. A lot of good themes in this book. I enjoyed the writing as well. It felt really light and fluffy, even when it was discussing some really heavy topics, so it was very readable, and it had a lot of humour, which really helped with the, I think, like the story developing. Willow is a lovable character, and I really saw myself in some of her struggles. And yeah, I really enjoyed the read, but I think if you're young, yeah, recognise some of these criticisms and go into it being aware of that, because not every mental problem is just solvable on your own, and that's okay too. And I don't think the message of the book necessarily was to, like, you can fix it on your own, but some of the things happening in the book may sort of give that implication. I'm not sure that's what the author wanted. Anyway, altogether, this was a read I really enjoyed, and I was really happy to see a book that sort of shows the struggle of dealing with anxiety. So yeah. Then I read the third book in the Tilly and the Book Wanderer series. I have been reading this series on and off, and it's a lovely middle grade about a girl who can wander into books and who can also meet all her favourite book characters, and it's just, oh my god, it is so magical and lovely and whimsical, and it's just one of the most warming and like joyful things I've read in a very long time. I think if you like Nevermore, or if you really enjoyed The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, you should also definitely check out this book. So in this third book, Tilly goes to Paris and she goes on all sorts of adventures in this book. Is that actually this book, or is that book 2? Oh, she goes to Paris in book 2. Sorry, she goes to America in book 3, which is also really fun because the series is set in England. So yeah, lots of traveling, really enjoyable, and just, oh my god, so magical, so cool. Definitely a middle grade you should check out if you want to read more middle grade. Then I read Wordslut, A Feminist Guide to Taking Back the Language by Amanda Montell. This was one of my favourite feminist non-fiction books that I've read in a while, and it was so enjoyable, and at the same time, with every page I turned, I was learning new things, and it didn't stop. With every page I was like, what? No way! And this book just really changed my perspective on a lot of feminist issues, so yeah, such a cool read. It's basically all about how sexism is sort of weaved into our language, but also about how men and women and different sorts of people that identify differently talk like in a different way. And it was so interesting to read. Like, there's some topics it touches on, like the way we talk about sex, the way we curse, the way we write our emails, the way we have conversations as men, women. It delves into so many of those things, and it was so interesting. And yeah, I really enjoyed this read, and I would highly recommend it if you're looking for a feminist read that can challenge you a bit, but that is still highly readable and accessible. Then I read Waarom, niet, zomaar, moet, stemmen, waar je ouders op stemmen by Titia Hoogendoorn and also Nienke Schuijt, which is a Dutch book, like you might have heard. I think freely translated, this would be why you shouldn't vote, what your parents vote, or something of the sort. Elections were coming up in Holland, and this book was all about our elections and our political landscape and our parties and like sort of different informations and scandals and everything about voting, and especially voting as a young person. And yeah, it was a really fun non-fiction read. I think both Titia and Nienke have such a fun tone of voice, like they're really fun to read. And at the same time, I learned a lot of things, and I felt well informed to go into that voting booth. So yeah, really nice. And this is a segue because the next book I read was called The Voting Booth by Brandy Colbert. This book was also all about elections, and it came at the perfect time for me because like elections were happening here. And this is sort of an election romance, so it's about a girl and her family's really political, they're really big on politics, and it's like a big thing for them. And she goes to the voting booth and she meets a guy, and he can't vote because like something went messed up with his ballot. I think it's ballot. Something was messed up with his ballot, so he couldn't vote. So she and the guy sort of go on this road trip to try and vote, and yeah, along the way, they talk about their past and many different things, and they also sort of start to feel things for each other. But they talk about grief and about family a lot, and it's a really, really, really wonderful book. It was like a very quick read for me. I listened to the audiobook as well. The audiobook was lovely. I highly recommend it. And yeah, all in all, a really lovely read. Another book I read in March was Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade, and this is a romance that has been highly anticipated by loads of people. I've seen it on BookTube many a times. And this is basically, if you like fanfiction and if you're like big on fandom, I think you will really like this book as well. It's about April, who's a fanfiction writer, and she writes a lot of smut, but a lot of different things as well. And one day she does a cosplay of one of her favourite characters of the show she writes fanfiction for. And this cosplay goes viral, and a lot of really rude comments are left on the cosplay because she's plus size. And the guy that plays her favourite character on like the super famous show asks her out on a date to sort of show the bullies like she's beautiful and she's just fine the way she is. She's really confident, so she's like, I don't need a man to save me, but she goes on the date anyway. And the thing is, he actually writes fan fiction as well, and they've been friends online for years, but they don't know that of each other yet, so that's really, really funny. It's so wonderful to see a plus-size protagonist living her life, loving herself, and there's still things in society that she has to deal with, but she's not letting any of that stop her. And yeah, I just think that's really wonderful that that's represented in fiction as well. So this is definitely a romance I would recommend. Then I also read Heart Talk, Poetic Wisdom for a Better Life by Chloe Wade, which was a book I enjoyed so much. I really had a good reading month. This was such a lovely book. It's sort of part poetry collection, part self-help book, and there's also some really cute tiny illustrations in between there. And yeah, it just had some poems I really related to about being single, being young, and having mental health struggles, but also family and online persona. And yeah, I just really, really enjoyed it. I think if you've read a lot of poetry or if you've read a lot of self-help, you'll be like, I've heard it all before. But like, if you need a nice reminder of all the things you sort of already know deep down, then this is really a book that's like perfect for that. I also read a graphic novel this month, yes, and it is called Bury the Lead by Gaby Dunn. This is sort of a crime graphic novel, which was really cool. I had not read like a murder mystery in that genre before, and the story was really fascinating as well, only I didn't like it as much as I would have wanted to, but it was still fun to read. This story is about an intern, and she's interning at the Boston Lead, which is like this big newspaper, and basically there's this huge murder case where a woman murders her husband and her son is missing, and she's like covered in blood and it's super horrible. And the suspect, the woman, she does not want to talk to anybody, not to the police, not to the reporters, but then this intern visits her in prison and she's the only person she wants to talk to. So yeah, that's where the story starts, and it's really fascinating. I felt like the plot got a bit messy towards the end. I was like, does that make sense? I'm not sure. I still enjoyed it. The illustration style was really cool, and there's some queer relationships. There's a lot of bisexuals in this graphic novel. I was really pleased to find that out. So yeah, really lovely read as well, even though it wasn't like the best thing I've ever read, still highly enjoyable. Another book I read this month was The Good Luck Girls by Charlotte Nicole Davis. I've talked about this book already a bit in a vlog as well. This is a fantasy book that's really high on road trip levels and on like magical journey stuff. Some things I really enjoyed about this book was the world building and like the magical world, because it's about these girls that are sort of in a brothel and they escape because one of them accidentally kills a man, and then they go on this journey to be freed because they have like this branding on their face that they can't just get rid of because it's like a sort of magical branding, and without it they could never truly be free. And on their journey they meet all sorts of rebels and they sort of become bandits themselves, and it has like some Robin Hood vibes because they like steal from these bastards and then they sort of use it to make themselves and other girls better, which is really cool. So it's like, it's a woman revolution, and there's also a queer romance in this book, like not with the main character but some of the side characters, and it's very high on found family. And the magical world has this sort of ghost element, so there's loads of ghosts and like ghost monsters, which is really cool. I had not read anything like that before in a fantasy, so this is definitely a book I highly enjoyed. And yeah, I would recommend if you're looking for some fantasy that has some ghost elements and also some feminist elements and some found family elements and sisterhood connection stuff. Like, that's all really big in this book. And another book I read during March is The Black Flamingo by Atta, and so I have a little story time with this one. I was trying to fix my washing machine because like it wasn't working, and I had to do loads of laundry and it wasn't working. I was super frustrated, and that's when I started listening to this book because I was like, if I have something in my ears, I'll be able to concentrate and fix this thing better. And it actually worked, but I also listened to the entire audiobook in a day whilst trying to fix the laundry machine. I didn't succeed with the laundry machine, but I did succeed with this novel because it was so good. This is fiction, but it's sort of poetry. So it's written as poetry, but it's a fiction story, and it's almost as if somebody is just giving a spoken word performance for you privately. And it's such a beautiful story. It's coming of age of a boy who's gay and who's into drag. You read about him growing up, but also about him going to college and about his friendships, his life, his mother. And it's just, oh, it was so beautiful. I really enjoyed it, and it is so lyrical and wonderfully written. The audiobook, I could not recommend it more to you. I think the best way to read this book is definitely by audiobook, and it was so impactful and such an important read. I think if this would be required reading in high schools, like, our society would skyrocket in terms of development, because it was just so wonderful and yeah, really readable as well, and the poetry is beautiful, so I would highly recommend this read. Then I read Woman World by Aminder Dhaliwal, which is also a graphic novel. Oh, I read 2 graphic novels actually, I didn't even realise that. So this graphic novel is basically all about a world where men have gone extinct, so it's like, there's no more men. What would the world look like now? What are the issues we have now? And it's basically all these tiny webcomics. Like, the beginning is sort of fictionalized as a graphic novel, and then the middle is more webcomics, and then the end is a little graphic novel linear storyline again. So really cool concept. The webcomics weren't all as entertaining to me, but the beginning and the end of the graphic novel were highly enjoyable. I loved the coloring of this particular comic, so beautiful. In the middle, like, the webcomics had no color at all, but like the beginning and the end, mwah, well done, really beautiful. And then last but not least, I read the entire Ruby Red trilogy by Kerstin Gier, which is a German book trilogy. I know every time I talk about these on BookTube, all the Germans in my comments are like totally losing it. They're like, I've never heard anybody talk about this on BookTube. Oh my god, those were my favorites growing up. And like, also some people from Czech and like other European countries are always like, oh my god, no one talks about these. And I'm like, well, there are definitely people talking about them, but still, they're quite old, and like, you notice that when reading them. But these are some of my favorite books. They're time travel books. They're basically about this family, and they have like, they're part of this secret society of time travelers, and Gwendolyn grows up knowing that her niece is a time traveler, probably, but like, they come of age as time travelers when they're 16, and that's like when they can start time traveling. But Charlotte, her niece, has been going to like this mystery education the entire time to learn how to be a time traveler. But then when Gwen turns 16, it turns out she's actually the time traveler. And yeah, that makes for a lot of problems. This has wonderful romance. It's sort of historical at the same time because it's about time travel. It's got that secret society vibe. There's no school involved, but it has like dark academia vibes because they also live in like this really big old house and stuff. So she can also see ghosts. She has like a best friend that's wonderful. I hate the love interest, but I love him at the same time because he's so snarky, but like he's a horrible person, but at the same time, like I love him. So yeah, this book has some problematic elements, mostly the sexism. I think though that is also because it's dated, and it is definitely confronted in the book, the sexism, because like obviously in historical times there was a lot of sexism, which is normal. Well, it was normal. I'm not saying it was good. But I just think the writer could have challenged it a bit better, but like seeing since this was published a long time ago, I can see where she came from. So yeah, these are just some books I really love, and whenever I reread them, I just feel really happy and warm inside. So that's also why I reread them this month. So yeah, that was everything I read in the month of March. I really hope you enjoyed this wrap up and you enjoyed seeing me talk about everything I've read. Definitely let me know if you've read any of these or if you are planning on reading any of these. And if you don't know what to comment, just leave a cute cow emoji or like any cute animal. I hope you have a super lovely day, and I will see all of you in my next video. Bye guys!